Take it away.
Hello, everyone. Today is Saturday. It's brisk outside without being too chilling.
High of 34.
High of 34 in the Northwest Arkansas region. We're here in our usual place, the podcast booth at the Fayetteville Public Library. And we're recording an episode of the A to Z Podcast. I'm your host, Amber Long, and I'm joined with my co-host,
Zachary Birdsong.
And today we're talking about expectations.
I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that intro. Oh man!
Had to match your energy.
I loved
last.
I loved it. I loved it. I was actually thinking when you started out, I was like, man, this is very meditative. This is very serene. And then the Derby announcer came out of you. Saturday. Listen to the A to Z podcast, being recorded from your local Fayetteville library.
You also sound like a sport, sports or like XM radio.
Yeah, well, you know those commercials where it's like the monster truck things, and they're like Sunday, see metal hit metal, and see your foot hit the pedal.
That's funny. So expectations, huh?
Yes, okay. So expectation comes from the word, I'm probably gonna mispronounce this.
It's Latin, it's okay.
It is Latin. Expectatio. Which
sounds like a spell.
It kind of does, doesn't it? I feel like a lot of Latin words do.
Yeah.
But the prefix ex means like out or away from, and then spectatio is like being like to look at, right?
Like spectacle.
Yeah. So like to look out or to look away from, which I thought was like an interesting way to describe it, because it further like goes along with the idea that like when you're thinking about expecting something, you're not focused on the now, right? You're focused on whatever it is you're thinking is going to come, you know? And so I thought it was interesting that they used those two pieces and put those together to form that word, right? Because whenever
there's almost always positioned slightly in front of you.
Yeah. Yep. Until right at the point where it hits you like a brick wall. And it comes or it doesn't, because sometimes those expectations don't come to pass.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. And now let's talk about positive versus negative expectations, okay?
Okay.
Because when you're trying to be, and you can take this, you know, because usually people who are generally positive will have consistently positive, you know, expectations. They'll try to think that the best result or that a good result is going to come through, right, for them. People who are a bit more pessimistic or even maybe a bit more realistic, if they acknowledge that their life sucks in some way, are going to be having maybe more negative expectations about their life and outcomes for when they do things. And so when you're putting those two together and you're comparing them, when you have positive expectations, you're only setting yourself up to feel bad if that positive expectation doesn't come to fruition, because you have two different options, and you know, you can split hairs, and there can be a gray area where part of it, you know, part of the positive expectation comes true and part of it doesn't. But let's just say the two are that it either does or it doesn't. If you're thinking positively about it and you have a positive expectation of an outcome, then during the present, while you're thinking that, you're probably going to generally feel good because you have that positive expectation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're only going to feel bad if it doesn't happen, right? Because if it does, then, well, it's what you thought it was going to be, and you were excited about it. It was positive, so you're going to keep feeling
Right.
good. So when you have a positive expectation, you're only really going to feel negative from it if it doesn't come to pass. With negative expectations, you're going to feel bad no matter what. Because in that moment, you're expecting
No,
something.
false.
Okay, bring it on.
If you are a negative person
Okay.
and something negative happens and
All
you expected
right.
it, you're going to feel positive because you knew it.
Okay.
Yep.
But you're
Same feeling.
but you're not gonna. So you're saying though that you're not going to feel negative about expecting something negative to happen. You might feel
No.
you might feel good
Nope.
thinking, oh yeah, I was right about that. That's a good feeling.
Here's
But you're
my
telling
thing.
me you're not going to feel bad.
I think when people are pessimistic, you are a little bit masochistic.
Okay. You have said this before.
Yes.
And listeners, this is where the dichotomy comes in, because what you're hearing right now is a slight pessimist discussing with what do you call a positivist?
I'm not pessimistic.
You're realistic on
I'm
the
more realistic.
leaning towards.
No, because I feel I'm Was I pessimistic? Yes.
Okay, yes, and that's what I was about to say. You have the experience of a pessimist.
Yes.
I do not.
Yes.
So you just continue on with what you're saying, because you can
not
teach me something here with that perspective
anymore. But I think when you are a pessimist, when you see everything, when you expect things to go wrong, or if you have a more negative outlook about the world, when that happens, you're gonna feel vindicated.
But what about
because
leading?
you were right.
But what about leading up to it?
You may feel bad because here's the thing. I don't know that necessarily being pessimistic, quote unquote. I mean, look this up. Like, you can look up the definition. I don't know, but existing as somebody who people often called pessimistic, my mindset was that I didn't want to have a positive feeling and then have that positive feeling be stripped from you when you're confronted with reality. And so to set your feeling on the negative side of being like, no one's gonna even care that, like, let's say you're going to a party and you're like, no one's even gonna care that I'm here. When you go and they care, you feel good. You're like, yeah, oh my God. And then when you go and nobody cares, you feel neutral.
Would you say that
maybe you'll feel bad if you're like, see, I knew nobody would care about me. But there's a part of you that feels like you're tapped into the truth.
Do you think that's a dulling of your emotional sense too when you're doing that? When you're having a negative expectation?
No, because I feel like, would you say that to be positive is to heighten your emotions? I wouldn't say so.
I would say that if you're having a negative expectation for something, and let's say it doesn't, or it passes, whatever negative thing you thought was going to happen happens, right?
Uh-huh.
That when you feel vindicated and maybe it feels neutral to you, it's because you had already been thinking and you're used to thinking, oh, this is going to turn out this way. So you've kind of gotten accustomed to having that frame of mind where your nervous system and way of thinking, you're just used to it. So I think maybe before, whatever led to that person being maybe more negative in their thinking, I think has put them down a path of maybe dulling
in the sense of
bit.
You're desensitized to negativity.
Yes.
That can be a part of it if that's what's happening. If a person is negative, though, like, you can be a person who is negative or pessimistic, but you're not desensitized. So even when you experience the bad thing, it still makes you feel terrible. It's not.
And you feel terrible leading up to it too, right? Because you're thinking that negative thing's going to happen.
You may.
Maybe not terrible, but you're probably going to feel a little
when
bad.
that happens, you're already in a state of emotional distress.
Yes.
So anything is going to make you feel bad. If you take that part out of it and you're just like a normal person, I don't want to say normal, but if you're a person who
is typically content or kind of neutral.
A relatively stable mood, but you just expect negativity, it could be a desensitization thing. It probably is.
To some extent, I think a little bit.
But wouldn't you say that's the same thing on if you're an optimistic person? You're so, like, does the happiness register when happy things happen?
I think...
Or positive. I won't say happy, but like when positive things happen for a person who's optimistic. Or when negative things happen. Talk me through that. You go to a party. Mm-hmm. You're like, all my friends are going to be there, or everyone's happy to see me.
Oh, yeah. It's even worse. The feeling's even worse there. Because you're right. Because if you have a positive expectation and it does come to fruition, then because you're expecting that, you are kind of dulling, because you're already feeling it some. You're feeling somewhat excited for it, right?
Right.
So let's say if you hadn't had any expectations at all, when you get to that moment and it happens, whether it's good or bad, you're going to be able to feel it maybe more deeply in that moment because you didn't have that anticipation. Mm-hmm. Right. So yeah, mm-hmm. I think it goes both ways.
Yeah. I honestly think anybody who's not just realistic, whether you're positive or you're negative, mm-hmm. or pessimistic or optimistic, you're doing the same thing.
So you don't think there's...
Just one makes the world feel more comfortable than the other one.
So you don't think then that when you're comparing the two that there's a better or worse? They're just two different sides of the same coin.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, mm-hmm. but a person who always expects a good thing to happen, it depends on their mindset, because if they're a person who's relatively emotionally stable, mm-hmm. and let's say you're an optimistic person, what are we talking about? Are we talking about a person who, because it's the same thing with pessimism, are you talking about a person who is always expecting what they want to have, like, they imagine the best case scenario and they want that to be what happens. And then whether or not it happens, is one thing. And there's an even finer way to slice the mindset of that kind of person and the emotional response of that kind of person. Then there's the person who is always looking for positivity in a situation.
Yes.
Which is different.
Yes.
And then there's a person, to flip it, mm-hmm. for a pessimistic person, there's somebody who's always expecting something bad to happen, and they think about the worst case scenario and they say, this is going to happen to me. Slice it however you want. Mm-hmm. Then there's somebody who's always looking for negativity.
Right.
And honestly, what's worse in that situation, where I would say the healthier mindset for an optimist is the person who's always looking for positivity.
Right.
The unhealthy mindset in being pessimistic, although, yes, worrying is terrible, but the person who's worse off is the person who's always looking for negativity.
I agree. That's exactly what I was, because I was like, it's kind of a two-parter, and then you basically took the words out of my mouth.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I like to see that as I was thinking it, because it was at the beginning of you starting to talk, and then you went right into it, and I was like, wow, yeah, that's exactly where I was about to go. We had the same thought at the same time, but it is a two-parter. And I think you're right. I think that because you can have people who expect the same outcome, but dependent on whether or not they have that positive or negative spin, right, is going to change a lot for them. And it is worse to have that negative spin.
And I would say both the positive, if you are looking for positivity or if you're looking for negativity, that's not actually necessarily based in expectations.
No, it's not, because it can be the same. It is,
thing.
because it can be the same outcome.
Yeah.
But it's just what you walk away with.
Yeah.
Right.
Versus if you're a realistic person, I think in everyone's mind, you're just taking everything for what it is.
Right. Right.
And so if there's lots of positivity to be gleaned, that's what you'll take. Negativity, that's what you'll take. And
Yeah.
you report on it, you know, quote unquote, accurately or whatever.
I think that's a good takeaway. I think whether or not you have typical positive or negative expectations, to just try and put like a positive spin on it that'll help keep you going, especially if you have a lot of negative things that you feel you can expect, right? Yeah, that's an important distinction.
Because I would say somebody who, and maybe this is like a spectrum of things, but somebody who worries a lot. So you think about the worst case scenario and you go, oh my gosh, this is going to happen to me. And what if, and what if, and what if, and what if. The way you kind of like, you may cope with that tendency is to try to look for the positive things that will drown out the negativity. But then also, and maybe this is an entirely different thing altogether, this is more like probably nihilistic, is not a little bit of like, well, bad things may happen. They very well could happen. This situation is god awful or whatever. So I'm just going to do whatever I want and try to be happy and try to feel good about what goodness I can find.
Yeah, and bring
and
to the
I
table.
don't know what mindset that is.
I think that's a bit of
And I don't know that the person, what they expect.
I think that comes with like a realist mindset.
You think?
Yeah, I think so, because that kind of, because now you can kind of split it into three parts. You can say, positive, negative, realistic expectations, and then there's a positive, negative, and realistic mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because you can go overboard if you have a positive mindset and you try to take the positive out of everything. Like there's definitely a too much of that, just like there's a too much of being, having negative takeaways. But
too much of anything is too
much. Yep. Amber's favorite quote. And
love it.
So like the realism comes in with saying what you just did, which is just like, this is how it is. This is how it may be. This is something that I can glean from that experience. Right. So yeah, it's a two-parter there, with three kind of options for how to handle it. I was also kind of thinking yesterday, because the reason I brought up like the positive versus negative was, and this is why it's important to talk with people too, because I like trying to create not universal rules or truths, but like general like categorizations and like the nailing down of concepts to make it easier for people to like digest or understand. So I was going to say that it's almost better to have positive expectations than negative, because what my argument was going to be is that if you have a negative expectation, you're ensuring you're going to feel negative because you're expecting something negative. But to your point, for people who generally may do that, it may make them feel good when that negative thing happens because they feel vindicated, and maybe it's not something that they're feeling necessarily bad about when they're during the time they're expecting it, right? And so for me, I would say for the type of person that I am, it is better to be positive and to have positive expectations because the way that I work and that I function. And but I understand now with your life experience and what you've been telling me about that that's not a universal thing. It does depend, but I think that there's kind of like you can have a spin where sometimes you're more positive or sometimes you're more negative as a person with your expectations or how you're taking things away. But I think that being realist for both of those two steps is probably the best. Yeah,
I think I've found for me having really, because I think that's the complication sometimes, is that if you are a person who has really extreme negative expectations, that's born out of the fact that you are actually a really I don't want to say like hopeful person, but you do have a very strong sense of what you wish to have happen. Because you can imagine like what would be the best thing. I think you're a very idealistic person when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my pessimistic thinking was born out of the ability to just imagine my life perfectly or beautifully and not have my expectations be met. And so then what hurts more, to be wrong or to be right? Or to be I was almost like to be right about being wrong? I don't know. So if something bad happens and you expected something bad to happen, like I said, there is a little bit of vindication in it, so you do come away with a positive feeling. If you expected something positive to happen and then you see like that doesn't happen, and not only did it not happen, sometimes, and maybe this isn't true, but people have a tendency, especially when you're dealing with people, to kind of like want to knock people off their high horse.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are people who can see when someone is so happy or so hopeful or optimistic, or they feel really good about themselves, and it makes them feel good to strip that from that person. So not only did you present them with negativity, but you did it in a way to humiliate them.
Right.
To bring them back down to either reality or lower. And I think that becoming a pessimist is born out of so many experiences like that. Of not just bad things happening, but malice. Intentional.
It's a protection measure.
Hurt.
Yeah, because you're trying to beat
Yeah.
other people to the punch.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think that being realistic or having no expectations.
Yes. Yeah, I was about to get into that.
Because I was telling somebody about the podcast episode, and he was like, what do you expect out of life? And I was like, I don't expect anything anymore.
Right.
And he was like, well, that's not good. And I was like, I don't think so. I think I have found so much more stability
and
as an
peace.
Emotionally volatile person, and peace in the sense of like, I'm just going to take it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to show up as best I can. Because now the focus is no longer on I focus less on the expectation of the outcome or the situation. I focus more about what I expect from myself, and not even expect from myself in terms of like, I expect you to perform like this or you to be like this. And just the expectation is really more about, and I wanted to talk to you about this, what forms the basis of our expectations. And I think if you're talking about yourself, let's say you're going for a job interview and you can expect, and it's for, I don't know, Adobe. You're going to be a new software designer for Adobe.
Wow.
Or whatever. You can expect to get the job because you're super qualified or hoping for the best, whatever. You can expect to not get the job because you're not that qualified, or you don't have a lot of experience, or I don't know, maybe your last job was at Vogue. And you're like, these people are not going to take me seriously. I'm coming from a completely different industry. I wasn't even in software design. I was in marketing. Like, you may have all these different feelings. Or you can just go, well, I know what I have to offer. I'll answer any questions that they have.
Mm-hmm.
I know how much time I put into developing the skills that I think would be best for this. And I'll just see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And the expectation is more about just knowing who you are.
Yes, I agree. I think if you're going to have them, that being realist is the best way to go. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like you're saying that you think it's best to not have them at all, right?
Well, I don't.
Well, no,
I
agree with that. I think
you gotta
so.
do what works for you.
Yeah, but
I would say this. I won't say that about the people who are negative. Baby, move on. Don't live there. because it's not a great place to be.
Right.
Unless it's a realistic situation. But then again, there's always, I don't know. I always feel like there's always a door. There's always some sliver of light, so find it. But if for the people who are like really positive and optimistic and da-da-da, I don't know what your life is like. I won't even pretend. But y'all seem real happy. So
Well,
do your thing, I guess.
That's going back to like the two parts. You can still have like, you can still put positive spins on things as they're happening in real time, right? And you can still be a positive person within those grounds, but that's not the same thing as having positive expectations. So you can still have no expectations, but be a positive person,
Yeah.
right? So, like with the example that you gave, okay, so let me get into this one because I'd kind of placed two categories into types of expectations that you can have outside of just like the disposition of, you know, positive or negative or realist. And so I kind of thought about them being either complex expectations or consequential expectations.
Okay.
And complex expectations are the outcome is likely uncertain, long term, typically. Many variables are at play. It's not totally within your realm of influence because of all these variables. There are external things that are going on as well, right? And then it typically involves emotional attachment
This
of some
sounds
kind.
like something you should not have. I don't know. Give me an
Well,
example.
no, that's what I'm talking about is that's like with the job thing, because you could be really good at what you do. You could be top tier at what you're doing, but you have no control over if the boss's friend has a son that's also applying for the job and they're going to give it to him, right? You have there's so many other variables at play
like
too,
the
right? For what they're
election.
looking for. Yeah. Oh, wait, what?
Like a presidential election. That's what's
yeah.
coming to mind for
Yeah,
some reason.
right. Like basically anything that that's long term, you don't have control over. So like a job interview, that's something that you probably shouldn't have. The complex ones are ones you probably shouldn't have expectations for.
Okay.
And then there's the consequential. These are the outcomes like 99% certain. If I wash dishes, I expect to have clean dishes. It's direct. It's short term. So, and I know that sounds kind of like really watered down, but hear me out. It's short term. There are a few variables at play. Okay. It's primarily within your realm of influence, and typically emotionality is like neutral, right? It could be something, and this is a sliding scale. So let's say that you know a friend really well, and you make a joke, and you expected them to laugh, and they did, and it's probably because you know them so well, you knew that was something that was probably going to make them laugh. That leans more consequential, even though there are more variables at play, because their mood could be affected that day. They could have had something else going on that led them not to think that it was funny or whatever. So it's kind of on a sliding scale. But this is just to say that when you're thinking about whether or not you should have expectations, if you're trying to decide what kind you should allow yourself to have, these complex ones are ones that you should probably try to, loosen up your hold on a little bit. And these ones that lean more consequential, that are almost immediate, that you can really just kind of like see them happening in real time because it's so like sequential, right? Those are likely okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So where would you put, like, if you are on a date with somebody you met on Tinder? That's a complex one.
That's a complex one, yeah.
If you...
expecting to have a good time, if you've only had like a few message exchanges and stuff, because meeting someone in person is completely different. They may have catfished you, right? They may not look like their photo. They may have had a lot more time or friends helping them in how to respond and in thinking about how to respond. So, the person-to-person discussion may not go as seamlessly as it felt it did over the Tinder discussion, right? So it's very complex, but that's where these things are kind of like a sliding scale too, because maybe you planned the date for the next day, so it's kind of short term, right? It's not a long term expectation because it doesn't require a long buildup of something. A long expectation would be something like planning to be promoted twice within the next 5 years or something like that, right? That's very complex. So I would say that leans complex.
It depends on where you work.
It does depend on where you work, but typically, even so, I mean, you could have someone leave your supervisor. Let's say you expect that for one because you think that they could, that they're very willing to do that for you and they've talked about it, but maybe something happens to them. They have to leave unexpectedly because they didn't see it coming, right? Sure. And then you get someone else. There's just, the more and more you get outside of yourself with what kind of control and influence you have on it, the more it becomes complex.
Yeah, I would say to go along with that, because when I was thinking about it yesterday, I was like, I think, because I was trying to think about the topic, and I was like, I don't know if I really have a lot to say, really, other than anecdotal. But what kept kind of coming up is that it's hard to have expectations or reasonable expectations for anything that you don't know intimately, and
exactly.
It does, but that's backed up by some level of fact, because expectations should only really come into play when there's a level of predictability. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what consequential expectations are. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Because I was like, people expect stuff, but if it, I mean,
you expect subconsciously, if you go get a drink from 7 Brew that you've had before, you expect it to be good. You're not thinking about it, but that's why you're getting it again, right?
Because you have data.
Exactly.
Mental data.
That's why,
to back it up.
You know how consistent it is, and maybe once or twice it's going to be bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to happen, but
in
generally,
which case it defies your expectations.
Yes, right, right. But those are subconscious ones you don't think about. That just happen day to day. But that's why the consequential ones are more okay, because they're just kind of so ingrained and so sequential that you don't even really have to think about it. You don't think, I'm going to wash these dishes and I expect them to be clean. You're just going to, they're going to be pretty much, right? Because it's a direct result.
When they're not, you go back and you look and you're like, what the heck was I thinking? How did I clean these? Giant piece of food on the side where my head must have been somewhere else.
You're like, oh, I forgot to use soap. I just used water.
And sometimes that happens.
Yeah, sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. I thought it was for you to say that because I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. If you don't have anything else necessarily to say right now about that.
No, I don't.
Okay. So when thinking about competition and being competitive, okay, she did a little eye roll there. I was thinking about that the other day, and I was like, that is really intertwined to expectations, but in a different way. It's not intertwined with expectations for the future as much as it is maybe intertwined with expectations that you had for yourself in the past. Because when you're comparing yourself to somebody now,
it's both.
I can see it being both. But I was like, if you're comparing yourself to what someone else is doing now, mm-hmm. to think I could be doing that has to do with past actions that could have been done to have gotten you to that point, right?
Sure, yeah. Well, yeah. I guess the reason why I'm saying is both is because you can say you're preparing for a race or something. You have expectations for the future. You expect to win.
Right, yes.
And you expect to in relation to the past, you expect to maybe get a higher or a better time than you did previously.
Right.
So expectations really are, I think that definition is really interesting. And I wrote down the colloquial definitions of expectations, and it really is very much time. It's a word that's loaded with time and imbued with time.
Outside of the now, right?
Outside of the now, yeah. Yes. Your relationship, your current relationship to everything that has happened and will happen. Mm-hmm. And it's weird to think about. It is weird to think about how much we distill down these things into one word. Mm-hmm. And you just put so much life into a word. But
and I agree. What I was thinking about when I said it's more past associated is the comparison competitiveness.
Well, and so that's the That's the thing. I don't know. Comparison isn't inherently competitive. It can become, because if I'm just comparing an apple to an orange, would you consider that a competition?
No.
Or if I'm...
Well, in what way are you comparing them?
Just this,
just an acknowledgement of like, this is red, this is orange.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because I was going to say, like, another comparison example would be like when you're little and you look at your parents and you're like, well, we have the same nose, we have the same, this is where I get this from.
Right.
So that's why whenever people would say like comparison is the thief of joy,
I think it's both.
in terms of just taking language for what it is and what comparison, the act of comparing is. Comparison is different from, or like if you're comparing and you're contrasting, all that's doing, like when you're making the Venn diagram, which is the visual representation of the act of comparing, it's not an assessment of value.
Right.
It's just sorting things into what's similar and what's different.
It's an acknowledgement versus a value judgment.
Exactly. Competition, I feel, without any definitions in front of you, is the act of striving against something else.
Well, and that's why I think it's bad when you have both.
It can be. It doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to be bad.
No, but it...
And hear me out. Okay. Because I think that there is a villainization of being a competitive person. And it doesn't have to be like that. Because if you are a person who strives, like, so that's where ambition comes in, right? You have a desired outcome. That's usually what ambition is. And you're propelling forward. Ambition becomes competition when you're doing that against something else. You're trying to surpass whatever. Sometimes in order to do that, and a lot of times to be successful at doing that, then you have to bring in comparison and you have to understand this is what makes this is what makes me. So how do I get the edge to surpass this thing or this person? Because sometimes it's yourself. A lot of times when people like do an individual sport like swimming or running or gymnastics or whatever, those sports, they drill into your mind like, yes, you're competing against the people you're on the track with, but the race is against yourself. You're striving for your personal best. And that's what they try to emphasize is personal development in those sports. That's why they're so meditative and practice-based almost. And so that's why I think that the comparison is a thief of joy is an oversimplification, because
Agreed.
The reason why I don't like that is because there are people who have a knack for comparing things. They're really good at it, and it's villainizing this thing that's actually really good about them. What becomes the problem then is when you're using it to value yourself or someone else. That is not inherently comparison. That is like something else. I don't even know what that word would be. Evaluating the superiority of you and someone else based on comparison. But some people just walk into a room and they don't care who's in that room and they didn't compare anything. They just, I'm better than you because I'm me. There's no comparison. You know?
Well, because the comparison's already been made. They don't have to reevaluate.
It's not a
They've
real
already...
comparison.
Well,
they're not actually comparing. They're not even doing that. I read in this, I was listening to...
They don't think they have to. They just think, they already think they're better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're not comparing, though. They just have decided.
I feel like that's a...
And if they were to compare, they would come to a truth. I'm not better than you.
No, because so you think then in that scenario that if I feel like we're getting away from expectations a little bit,
but that's okay.
Because I was gonna try to bring it back up into it, but if you think then that in the scenario if someone comes into a party and they think they're just better than everybody there, if someone were to come up to them and say, well, you know, I've done this and you've only done this and I've done this and you find this important and I've done more of that than you have, you think that'd start to change their mind?
If they were to let it in, but they wouldn't.
Well, right. That's why I'm saying that, like, I think it's kind of...
I don't think it's... But that's why I'm saying I think that's the case to make for... It's not about the comparison. It's about the evaluation. the and by evaluation I mean the valuation.
What's about, like, what
the
makes
value,
it bad,
like,
or
yeah.
But it's bad that they're not evaluating. They're still saying they're better, and that's probably
no, I know,
not good,
but I'm saying
right?
I don't think that is the issue. There is not comparison. The issue is valuation. Valuation
Yes.
is the thief of joy. It is not
Yes.
comparison.
Right. Comparison's just a step to get there.
It's just a thing that we're putting all of this onto, but really it's the idea that as a person, which does kind of tie into expectations.
Right. That's what.
Because
yeah, I
it
wanted to bring
sets our expectations when we start to assign values
Yes.
onto, and value meaning worth.
Because it's almost like if you're seeing someone post on social media about how well they're doing in a field or area that you would like to be doing very well in, and you start going down that comparison and valuation rabbit hole, and then you're also thinking about, you kind of have to go back to thinking about expectations a little bit, what you had expected from yourself.
Or what you think the societal expectations are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that way.
Right.
If you're talking social media. Because you may see somebody who you recognize, because this happens to me all the time, you recognize that they're meeting the societal standard. And I can look at them, and I may not want that at all for myself, whatever they got going on.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that I'm not going to feel bad. I may know that in society I'm lesser than, quote unquote. But it's not, I don't desire to be more like them. I just desire to have value.
Right. But you don't have, because you don't desire like the same kind of root or traits that they have in that sense. You there's then no expectation associated with that.
No, there is, because what I am acknowledging is that there is an expectation that other people have.
Oh, but not for you. I'm talking about for you.
Yeah, well, it's not coming from me. No.
Okay.
I'm just aware.
Yes, that there's a general social. Okay, right. Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah.
We're on the same page there.
And so then the negativity or the poor feeling about expectations is coming from the fact that I know I'm not living up to
others' expectations.
Yes.
Okay.
Of everybody, or me specifically.
Right.
Yeah.
And then on the if you were to have expectations, it can go back to, let's say if it was something you desired, right, that you're comparing and making value judgments on, then there are past expectations likely involved where you're like maybe beating yourself up over it a little bit, thinking like you didn't meet whatever expectations you had held for yourself to be able to maybe get to that same point that other person is in. Maybe not always, but that's there. And it's interesting to kind of think about.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. And because it's kind of a weird way, because usually when we think about expectations, we're thinking about the expectations that we have in the present now for the future, but there's also the acknowledgement of the kind of quote-unquote failing of meeting the expectations that we had in the past for where we're at now.
Right. And I bring up potential because that's to say, like, if growing up, here an example is everybody always told me, like, oh my God, you're going to be so tall. You're going to be so tall.
Why, just because you were tall?
Because I had lanky, I had long arms and long legs and long fingers and big hands in proportion to like my torso. So I think everybody thought I was going to grow, my torso was going to grow into the limbs that I had. It did not happen. And so I don't care because I don't need to be tall for some reason. But if I had continued on in sports, that would have been nice to be taller. And so like there's a this isn't really like a 1-to-1, but there was an expectation that I did not meet, and I don't care. But let's say it was like I was walking around and I don't know, I was really, really good at being, like, I was very argumentative, and everyone was like, oh, she's so smart, she's probably gonna be a lawyer. Oh, she's gonna be a lawyer, she has the potential to be a great lawyer. And then I grow up and I'm like, I don't know, I run a soup kitchen, which is honorable and amazing,
in its own way, yeah.
but it's not being a lawyer,
Right.
then there could be somebody who says, well, she didn't live up to her potential in terms of what people thought intellectually I was capable of. Doesn't actually mean I'm not as smart as they thought.
Just means that you're not using it in the way they had,
that they had expected
the general
me to.
expectation, yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, that's one of those where people are looking at your past and making a determination about your future. And, like, you can't predict the future.
And really what it is that they're doing is they're just imposing their own will of what they would have wanted for themselves had they had your trait onto you.
Or the only thing that they can even think of that would translate to.
Because it's just what they have been told or see on TV or whatever, right? Like that's the thing to do. If you're smart, be a lawyer, be a doctor.
Exactly. Like, once upon a time, if you were really good at astrophysics, you were just going to become an astronaut or work for NASA. And now there's SpaceX. And you didn't even know that was going to come into being. And now you're, in the military working for SpaceX. Nobody even thought that, And I say that to say, you'll never know what you're going to do growing up because it's always changing.
No, and that's why that's a complex expectation.
It's a complex.
And you should not hinge. And this is a perfect segue. I think kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about was I don't know what sound I made was
locking it. I don't know.
Yeah, locking it. Let's go with that. Is because a lot of people kind of confuse these. I've seen people talk about how can you have no expectations but also have goals, right? But there's
great question.
Well, but there's planning versus expectations in that sense, right? Because you can still have goals, but the idea is that you don't expect that they are going to happen, right? You can plan and you can build up a system to get you to a point that you are striving for, but acknowledge at the same time, this may not happen. I know what I'm working towards and I know what I need to do in the moment, right? So it's kind of like what you almost want to do is break down what would be your acknowledge that your complex expectations should instead be goals that are planned for, and you break those down into consequential expectations, right? So that you can do now. So if you have long-term goals that you want to accomplish, what you can tell yourself is, okay, well, if I want to start doing, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. If I want to write a book, let's say I want to write a book, what you can do is say, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start writing until I don't feel like it anymore. Completely within your control, right? Or not even write a book. Let's say you want to write a New York Times bestseller. That's a firm, complex goal, okay? What you do is you start having those consequential expectations and just say, I can do this now. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a little bit every day until I don't feel like it, right? So some days it may be like, a few hundred words. Some days it may be like 30 or something like that. But you keep doing things that are within your control and you tell yourself, okay, well, I'm going to look at, maybe new vocabulary I can learn today, right? And you just do your best planning for it by doing what you can in the moment without telling yourself this thing is going to happen. I
don't know.
Okay. Speak to it.
I agree with what you are saying, actually. So it's not me saying that won't work. That will work for most people. I think when you are a person who is idealistic, though, like extremely so, that is still... And then you're overly precise, as I tend to be in terms of wording, because it frames my thoughts. It frames my expectations.
Right.
And I had really high expectations for my life. I told my therapist this one time. I was like, I don't even, never mind. I don't even want to say it because it's so stupid. I had really high expectations for my writing career. And her response was like, yes, but you actually need to be doing the things. And I was like, well, I am doing them, but not at the volume, which I think is what you're speaking to, that would actually lend that to be true.
That's where the realism comes in.
Right. Which was hard for me to accept at the time. And I think even now I'm like, I don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. And so living in uncertainty has been very scary and I think very cathartic, though, at the same time, and very helpful, because there are people who, like, if you want to write a New York Times bestseller, it may actually be less about the writing and more about having a platform. I'm more likely to become a New York Times bestseller now because it benefits New York Times to amplify my book if this podcast grows.
Right.
Like, so I have to be somebody important.
It helps. It helps.
It helps.
Otherwise, it is a lot about luck and kind of who you know. And
yes, very rarely are you going to be like, debut novel. No one's ever heard of you. You've never published anything before.
You were
right
just some
off the
dude
bat.
outside in Tennessee or something. Yeah.
But I bring this up to say, like, there's a lot of different ways to get there. But the main thing that with expectations, as with a lot of things, is asking yourself, why is that what you expect? Why is that what you want to have happen? And
that's what makes it real when you start asking that question. That's if you're too pessimistic or positive, that's what brings it more into reality.
Right.
You know, what data do you have to back this up?
And I had really high expectations for what I wanted to accomplish in that area of my life, in every area of my life. And every day I woke up and that wasn't my reality, I was upset with myself. And took that out on forcing myself to work harder and harder and harder, and then your procrastination kicks in because now your body's like, stop putting pressure on me to do things that I don't even want to do it. And your brain's just making stuff up because it's trying to find, again, the validation, the valuation wherever it can get it. And it does that sometimes by setting expectations really high in the attempt to give you almost the reward of having the thing by imagining having the thing to give you what it needs right now.
Yeah.
And so
I understand that.
Expectations can be really harmful to you. And if you don't have healthy, realistic expectations, and if your expectations aren't rooted in coming from the right place, they're kind of a distortion and a waste of time, and also they can make it difficult for reality to set in positive sense, because beautiful things, wonderful things can be happening all around you, and that's what makes it harder to be positive. When you think that you have to achieve this really extreme thing or have this really extreme thing come to fruition in order for you to be happy. And that also feeds the pessimism and the negative mindset.
Yeah.
And so I would just say also, too, when you're setting your expectations, alongside it, in the background, there's a lot of, like, emotional work, whether you realize it or not. So I don't know. Why do you expect what you expect?
It's a good question. So, but you agree with treating complex expectations more as like goals that you're planning for, and then focusing more on like because an example that comes to mind for me is recently I've picked up drawing, and I do a lot of I'm looking at another drawing, and I'm trying to copy it best I can. I don't expect it to look exactly like that. Right. I have the goal that it's going to look like that.
Is that complex though?
Not necessarily, but it kind of is. But I'm trying to do like a simplified version of it as like an example.
Here's why I'm bringing that up. if your complex goal, you may have a complex goal one day to make a book of your drawings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so you may be using that goal as like the benchmark to motivate yourself to draw every day.
Mm-hmm.
That can work. If your idea is to create a best-selling book of drawings and you think that's going to motivate you to get there, that may not work because it's too much pressure.
Yeah, right.
That expectation is too high and you may not show up because deep down, you know the reality. And you know that's going to take how good it has to be for that to become the truth, you know? And so you can do that, or you can just draw every day with the expectation that I will get better.
Yes.
And
right.
then when you get to a certain point, someone or you, doesn't matter, will be like, there's enough work here. I think you could put this together and make a book. I bet it would sell pretty well. And so I would say I love the consequential option in the sense of like,
yes.
I just expect to grow. I expect to learn. I expect to get better.
Very short term, very
exactly.
now.
And that can happen. And then you don't even have to expect all these big things to happen to you.
No.
Because they will happen based off of the choices you make every day. So it's not necessarily worth. That's why like having dreams, which is bad, but like, do I have dreams? I don't know, not anymore. Do I have expectations for a big future? It'd be nice. Obviously, I have expectations. I don't even know if they're expectations. I have hopes. I have things that would be dope to happen with this podcast.
Well, that's why I'm trying to
know.
input it. That's why I'm saying goals
But I
and
don't
planning.
expect it.
But it's not. You don't have to expect it. That's the difference. Expecting is not planning, and goals are not expectations. Goals are what you're aspiring to, but you can acknowledge.
So you're saying swap out
expectations for planning
for
and goals.
goals.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought you were saying use your goals to get to
No.
expect. And I was like, I don't know.
I'm saying all you should be doing.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No. You're fine. This is good. What you said about consequential expectations being the thing. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying the same thing. I think you should
agree.
only have consequential expectations. Any complex expectations you have should be made goals instead that you plan for, but acknowledge that they may not come to fruition. Those are what you're aspiring to. But what you're really focusing on are those consequential expectations that you can do each and every day that are within your power to control. They're under your realm of influence, right? And so what you're talking about, like, you said you wouldn't call it expectations for this podcast, and you said hopes, but those are, they're goals. But because you acknowledge they may not happen, right? And that's the realism. So you're not expecting them to happen. You're not expecting them not to happen, but there's something you're aspiring towards. And the things that we're doing, like right now, right? The consequential element of this, now that we've got it down so well, is that we are going to release this. It's going to be put out, and that is a step towards that aspiration.
So like a hope is a positive aspiration.
Mm-hmm. I would say that's correct. I would agree with that.
Okay. I know it sounds dumb that I'm like thinking about that.
No, you're putting it in like your own terms that makes sense. So does that make more sense? I'm sorry I wasn't more clear on that.
No, it does make more sense. I think the use of the word goals, because I think I just have such a very specific thought process, like goals, and like the outcome of a goal is always an achievement, but that's not necessary. A goal is just a post.
Yes.
To arrive at, like a place to pass through.
Right.
A checkpoint.
Yes.
Like in video games. Okay. Because a goal is just a progression. Is one part of the progression.
Right.
And the end is
whatever it may be. Yeah.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you have any expectations give me one expectation that you hope to live up to, one expectation that you're like, that's stupid, and get that out of here?
Well, that's the thing. I think for me to go to like switch from expectations to goals is kind of like it
You
just
don't have
fits
it
in for me.
anymore.
Yeah, it's hard to think about like a complex expectation. I don't think at this point I really have any.
Do you have any expectations that you see out in the world that you think that just gotta go?
When people expect to get whatever they think they deserve, because a lot of people think they deserve much more than what they really do, because they haven't put in the real work for it, and they think that people should be essentially subservient to them. So I think if there was like one expectation that had to go, it would be that one.
Yeah. I do have a little bit of an expectation for myself, but my expectation is that I get to, when I leave this earth, I'm a fully developed human being. That I have actually explored fully every part, even the negative parts of what it means to be the person that I am.
I like that.
expect that from myself. In the sense that, like, I make decisions and lean into things that without that expectation, or if my expectation were different, then I would shy away from those things. Within reason, though, I expect to come out like a reasonable person. And then for some reason, it's probably because they both are. That makes so much sense. Never mind. And one expectation that I think needs to go. The expectations of men and women having different value. I think it needs to go. I think it is equal but different. I think the idea that a man needs to make more money, I don't know how that even persists today. I don't know why that's still a thing that people believe in. Like, it's gone. It's not even... It's stupid.
Money's the new farming or hunting. It's the new putting the food on the table.
But and that's the crazy part, is that even back then, if it was hunting and gathering or whatever, most of the food came from the gathering, not the hunting. And it wasn't like it was a bigger burst of effort to hunt, but a hunt lasts how long versus day in, day out gathering? The value is probably equal.
Right.
Depending on, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I just think that needs to go.
Yeah.
And I think that if you can get rid of that, you can get rid of a lot of, like the bulk of inequality in this world is the idea that men and women have different value. They don't. Equal but different. So
the equal but different is I think a good summarization.
Yeah. So I think that needs to go.
Yeah, I like that. Well, so I guess, guys, peeps,
Humans,
human beings, I
dogs,
guess,
cats, if you're listening,
everyone, it's okay to have some expectations. Try to make them realistic if you can. If you're someone who can go with having no expectations and stick to planning and goals, that's also probably pretty good. If you want to stick with having expectations, trying to stick with the consequential ones, probably best thing. The more complex they get, the more you're setting yourself up for, really striving or hoping for something that is outside of your control.
Stay in what you can do in your present, in your reality, as much as you can.
Yes.
Don't be... Never mind. Do you?
You can prescribe if you
I just
have
don't think being Delulu is helpful.
There you go. Yeah.
And I think when people are saying being Delulu, that just means like don't let other people limit what you're capable of. That's not being delusional. Believing you can do something, believing you can start a podcast with your friend is not delusional. That's very real and very practical, and the resources are very available. That's a real thing that we really did. So this whole idea that you have to escape your reality to create a better one is not true. It's just not true. And I think that breeds literal disillusionment. It's not. You don't have to do that.
And it goes back to the Latin root. It's. I'm going to try to say it again. Expectatio. Ex meaning out, and spectatio to be to look out, to look away from. So live in the now.
Look in.
Look inward. Be mindful. Be present.
Anyway.
Be good.
Yeah, you don't have to be good if you don't want to.
Oh, all right. I think you should be. All right, blockheads. You heard us yap on about expectations. Thanks for sticking through it with us again. We appreciate it. Like, subscribe, do all the things. We like saying that. Share. Get us out there. We also have a Patreon that is up that you can subscribe yourself to. We will be releasing, additional snippets and discussions that we have on that fairly regularly. So keep your eyes peeled out for that.
To get to it, go to the link in the bio.
Yes.
Wherever you're listening.
Yep. We'll have that there. So appreciate it, everybody. Feel free, as always, to let us know what you think, what your thoughts are on expectations. And we'll see you next time. 1, 2, 3. Farewell.